Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to talk about Commander Tough Rules and Cool Interactions, episode 55. Today's episode is going to go over one of the new enchantments from the Warhammer 40k products, and I think it might see some play in a few decks. It's like a little mini Elish Norn, but I feel like some people may not know how dangerous this could be to your own board state. The card is The Flesh is Weak, and it's an Esper enchantment that has 3 parts, so let's get straight to them. First off, the enchantment has a triggered ability that says, when the Flesh is Weak enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then it has 2 static abilities, the first one of which says, creatures you control with a +1/+1 counter on them are artifacts in addition to their other types. And then the second static ability says that non-artifact creatures get -1/-1. It's important to note that is symmetrical. It applies to your creatures as well as your opponent's non-artifact creatures. So clearly this is meant to pump your own board of creatures, and hopefully nerf your opponent's creatures, as most creatures in your average game of Commander will be non-artifact. Now, if all of your creatures are already artifacts, then none of this episode is really going to apply to them. But I'm going to assume that many players will be using this to turn a lot of their non-artifact creatures into artifacts so that they don't get hit by the -1/-1 effect. In many cases, this may not be a problem. But if you're in a seriously go-wide type of build in which you're producing a whole lot of 1/1 creatures to attack with, this card might just backfire on you. So let's get into why that is. In Magic, we often say that things happen at instant speed and how instants are faster than sorceries. That's not necessarily true, but most people get what it means. I was doing air quotes on the phrase instant speed. If you're curious about this and want to hear more about what it means to be sorcery speed, you can check out Tough Rules and Cool Interactions episode 7, which I'll link down in the video's description below. But there are other things in this game that are sort of faster than other things. One of which is how replacement effects are faster than triggered abilities, as they can replace the event that might have triggered a triggered ability. One other example of this is what we're dealing with today, and that is how static effects are faster than triggered abilities. And again, that is faster with air quotes around it. So let's take a look at a scenario. You're playing your Alayla Artful Provocateur deck, of which I have, and almost used The Flesh is Weak in it before I decided it wasn't worth the risk. Alayla says that other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. And then she also has a triggered ability that says, whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. So she is a go-wide fairy deck that aims to make a bunch of flying 1/1 blue fairies and get them pumped up for more damage. If you had her out and you cast The Flesh is Weak without any other anthems out that are pumping your 1/1 fairy's toughness, they would all be dead. Some of you may not yet see as to why this is, because in Magic, we apply the effects of cards from the top of the card first and then work our way down. So they would get their +1/+1 counters first, then they become artifacts, and then the -1/-1 effect would apply, but it won't touch them because they're now artifacts. Sadly, this is not how all of this works. Casting this enchantment would trigger Alayla, giving you a new 1/1 creature token, and then the enchantment would resolve and enter the battlefield. And it is at this point when your creatures with 1 toughness will die, because the triggered ability that gives them the +1/+1 counters will only be on the stack at this point. And so before it has a chance to resolve from the stack, the 2 static abilities on the card will already be applying to your creatures, which brings us to one of the other things that is, air quotes, faster than triggered abilities, and that would be state-based actions. And one of those SBAs is 704.5F, which puts creatures with 0 or less toughness into the graveyard. And that will also happen before the triggered ability will resolve and add those counters. One of the other cases in which this may come up in a game is if you have your creatures with more than 1 toughness, but they've taken some damage earlier in the turn. So let's use Alayla as the example again, and maybe you've played a Coastal Piracy earlier in the game, and you've attacked with your Alayla and a whole bunch of other fairy tokens. Maybe Alayla gets blocked by a 2/2 flyer, and so she's survived because she has 3 toughness. But some of your other creatures got through with some combat damage, and so you draw the cards from your Coastal Piracy, and you draw into The Flesh is Weak, which you want to cast during your post-combat main phase. If you did, and again have no other things out to anthem your Alayla's toughness to higher than her base 3, she would die as a result of The Flesh is Weak entering the battlefield. Its static effect would reduce her toughness down from 3 to 2 before she has a chance to gain the artifact type. And because of the 2 damage that she took from combat, that means that she's going to again die due to state-based actions. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you even learned something about these crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta!